evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Civil Rights Agenda's CAN TV show for the LGBTQIA community. This show is a live show, and as you can see on the screen, it is interactive. You can call us at 312-738-1060. And you can ask questions, make comments, and try and keep them kind of specific, though. Okay? Our guest today is a very good friend. He is Andre Marek. He is the Dean of Governor State University College of Arts and Sciences. And I am so happy to have him with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I asked Andre to be on because Governor State University has a very huge LGBTQ program, and so I'm going to kind of pick his brain a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about things that may be going on there, but first of all, I want to remind everybody that the show is brought to you by the Civil Rights Agenda, TCRA, at 2129 Northwestern Avenue in Chicago. Their phone number is 773-235-8852, and they are always looking for any help or volunteers in order to support the LGBTQ community. Okay? So, first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself, Andre.
Oh. So, yeah, that's good. I'm a historian. I work on the mostly the U.S.-Mexico border. I also write about gender issues, especially as they relate to Native American communities in that area. I guess I've been active for quite some time now working on LGBTQ issues at the university and at previous ones prior to that as well, especially working on creating safe spaces for people to be able to learn.
Excellent. And that is one of the reasons, because you know a lot about, and I don't think too many people realize, that the Native Americans actually were very accepting of especially transgenders.
Yeah.
God, I don't know how far back.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Because many Native Americans' ideas or senses of history aren't built on the same longitudinal time system that we have, right? But you know, you said were, and I would say are, and continue to be, right? So I was just in the past year down on the Tohono O'odham Nation, doing a little bit of work there, and there's two-spirited people still there, active and involved at the community college I went to, as well as in the local community, and nobody bats an eye at it. You know, it's just normal, commonplace deal. It's just that's what it is.
So it's part of. Oh, we have a caller. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question. Under the I'm not even going to say his name. Under Mr. 45 administration, the EECO, the Equal Opportunity Commission, have been somewhat defunded, and a lot of the top attorneys have gone. If you have a problem that require any type of remedy or any type of investigation, would the EEOCO have been pretty much defunded? Where do you go to get any type of remedy, any type of solution to your problem?
There's a number of places that you can go, quite frankly. Illinois especially has, ever since 2005, had a civil rights legislation that is very protective of the transgender and LGBT communities. So I know that there has to be...
I'm just going to be real quick, but the federal government is supposed to be doing their part. And how are they doing their part when funds have been taken away from that department?
Well, the federal government's not doing its part or doing anything except taking away LGBT
that's what I was trying to say.
things.
Thank you.
I mean, with the military, they will no longer let transgenders enlist. They are still, the generals are still talking about keeping those that they have. And then Mr. Sessions rescinded all of President Obama's protections in job employment, as well as Title VII and Title IX, et cetera, et cetera. But for those that are in those states that are accepting, like Illinois and Minnesota and California, and I can't name them all, New Mexico is one, a lot of them back east, Maryland, New York, etc. The states do have provisions. Now, in Chicago, frankly, there's a Howard Brown Center. There is Center on Halstead. There is TCRA, the Civil Rights Agenda, which I just showed, they can talk to. There's also another group called Equality Illinois, which can help with questions and so on. So I don't know their numbers right off the top of my head. What I do know is that there is a hotline, and the hotline is 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. So push comes to shove, one of the best places to go is to 800-273-TALK. And they maybe can get you to something local. Okay? So, but I think it's amazing to me that the Native Americans who were here first were a lot more accepting and tolerant of the differences in people than what we currently have.
But to be a positive piece here too is that we can think of the transformation that's happened over the last generation, right? Even in the last 15 years, from there being a majority people against gay marriage,
right, to
now it being an accepted and confirmed piece of Supreme Court law, right? So in spite of things being bad, progress is never always going forward, right? There's still the chance that things will eventually get better, right? So you and I met originally in Crete at a military function for Memorial Day,
right?
And it's pretty clear from those interactions and us talking to other people is that there's a lot of accepting people, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you know, it's true. That's amazing, but I also think that there's quite a capacity for understanding today. We just need to work on that.
Absolutely. Well, and that was a thought that I had not long ago, was that maybe some people don't see. We have a caller. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Listen, I was in the service, and I served my country proudly. But
Okay.
the thing is, all the people, transgenders, that want to go into the service, that's fine. But would be right for them not to. Would be right was for them to sign a paper stating that they don't want the operation while they're in the service. And I tell you what, that would solve the whole problem. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. I didn't quite hear everything.
So the caller said that that no one would have a problem with transgender folks being in the military if everybody agreed that while they were in the service that the government wouldn't pay for the sexual reassignment surgery.
Okay. Well, that's an opinion. However, I don't personally agree with that. I don't see anything wrong with it. For all of the health things, for all of the health issues that the VA supports for the veterans, cost of reassignment surgery would be very minimal and very small, extremely small. Okay? It's a matter of simply, finding surgeons like we have one in Chicago, Dr. Schechter, but finding surgeons that are willing maybe to cut their costs a little bit so that the VA could do referrals. But that's just, I don't see why the military can't, and I don't agree that they should not help. In fact, what was it? Do you remember the gal's name that was supposedly passing secrets?
Manning?
Yeah.
Chelsea Manning?
Yeah, when she was in prison, a judge back east ordered her, or ordered whoever, to allow her to have the surgery. So it has been done. And why it's such a big deal, I just don't understand. It's not that big a deal. We have another caller. Hello, caller.
I just had to make this point. And sometimes people need to look up the facts and figures and information whether you like it or not. When you look at the military budget, the military paid $87 million alone in Viagra. Now, the cost it may cause in terms of helping somebody, whatever the reason may be, they want to change their sex, that's just going to be a drop in the bucket compared to $87 million. They're just talking about based on the facts and figures. Look it up and see for yourself. $87 million just for Viagra? Now, come on.
Thank you. That's my point exactly. I want to ask Dr. Merrick a question. Do you think, because I know this has been an issue not only in different states but also in different countries, because in 2011 Canada tried to force the schools through a directive to teach about LGBTs in their sex ed classes. And that directive only held for about 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Okay. What is your opinion on teaching in sex ed about LGBT issues and what it's all about and so on?
Well, I mean, so I guess it's pretty simple. If do LGBTQ people exist?
Yes.
Well, then we ought to teach it, right? So it's
believe.
it's part of the human condition. To talk about something historical, I write about the period right after the Mexican Revolution in Mexico, often in the borderlands region, and there was a huge pushback about just regular basic. This is in the 1920s in Mexico. Just regular basic teaching about how people become pregnant, just basic sex stuff, right? And in fact, it closed down. The parents and many religious folks pushed to not have their kids go to school as a result. And these are really basic things that I don't think anybody would argue over today that everybody needs to know. So if it's part of the human condition, it should be taught. And it should be taught at age-appropriate. Different things should be taught at different levels when kids are ready for those things.
Right.
But the introduction of these things can happen really early on. And then we get more sophisticated as kids need to know more about these things as they grow up.
Yeah, exactly. And what amazes me, quite frankly, is all the consternation because, let's face it, high school kids, if not earlier, junior high for that matter, middle schools, etc., those kids are talking about sex, etc. anyway.
Right.
Sneaking peeks at Playboy, although they can't do that anymore.
That's right. That's right.
But, I mean, it's been a curiosity, so why not teach the facts rather than just leave it to their curiosity and, that type of thing. Which then brings me to another question, and given those facts, how do we teach the adults and the general population about what transgender is all about and why we are not the evil aliens that people think we are? How do we do that?
Yeah, so I don't have a real pat answer for you. I'm going to point again, you were recently out at Governor State and met with a bunch of our students and faculty and other folks, right? And you can see that there's a lot of hope for younger generations, how forward they are, how engaged they are around these issues. So I have a lot of hope that they'll drive this change. And I think back again, if we would talk about 15, 20 years ago, or even during the time of my own upbringing, right, about the ways in which being gay was constructed as an unnecessary evil, to coming to the fact that the vast majority of people have no issue with it now, right?
Right.
That perhaps that same sort of persistence and trying to mainstream understanding about the human condition can work and make it happen.
And I think that's witnessed by the fact that when Illinois was trying to pass the law to allow same-sex marriage, that in the paper I saw polls that indicated that, oh, we have a caller. Hello, caller. Caller?
Good evening again. In terms of sex education, depends on how the curriculum is and all that, they still should require parents' permission. A parent should be able to opt out of it. Because I never will forget, even though I was paying tuition and they was talking about sex education, I didn't want an 8th grader to learn about masturbation. And I felt it was inappropriate at that time, maybe like in high school or something like that, but it should involve a parent, because some schools say, well, we're going to teach this in school. Guess what? It may not be all right. And the parent should have the right to say yes or no. Certain things should not be automatic.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I think Dr. Merrick said within his answer that the information should be age appropriate. And yes, I mean, there certainly are things that you don't want to teach 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders, etc. But on the same token, there can be introductions to like 6th, 7th, 8th grade perhaps, saying, okay, transgenders, gays, bisexuals are not bad people. You don't have to go into detail necessarily, but to get the mind rolling that, you know, I mean, I am no different than Dr. Merrick. I'm no different than anybody out there listening or watching. Okay, I have the same organs. I have the same, you know, type of thoughts probably. I mean, there's no difference between me other than my choice of how I wish to live my life than anybody else. And I don't think that should be anybody else's concern. But I do think that it's something that we need to teach the general public to accept, because we're not aliens. And I think that was the point. And I agree with Dr. Merrick. Yes, I think things are getting better. As I was going to say, it's witnessed by the fact that when gay marriage, or when same-sex marriage was argued in Illinois, according to polls I saw, it was like those over 50 years old disagreed by 65%. Those under 50 years old agreed with same-sex marriage at the tune of 65%. So I see the
cultural shift.
Yeah, there are different thoughts about it, and people are not as. The problem is we now have an administration that loves to dwell on our differences and use those differences for their own agenda, and that's a real problem. I do want to mention something, and I'm going to show it here. Oh, sorry, let's get the overhead. Okay, Dr. Merrick, can you tell us a little bit?
So tomorrow night at Governor State University, we have a show put on by the Impact Theater called Starting Over. This is a show that tries to explore some of the complexities over the fluidity of sexual orientation and how it might change over time, and the ways in which people try to reconcile and work with the people that they love, even if who they love changes. So I invite you on out. It's tomorrow night, and the show's at 8 p.m. at Governor State University in our Center for Performing Arts. And that was rated as the best venue for live entertainment in Chicago Southland. So,
and that's in University Park, and you can certainly find it on the
Center for Performing Arts website at Governor State University.
right. Excellent. So, and that's kind of I kind of wish more schools, although my understanding that most colleges now have LGBT clubs.
Yeah, or more than one, right? I mean, so we have a major in gender and sexuality studies, so that people can actually study the multiple different ways in which we understand gender and sexual expression and orientation and practice, and how those things impact really powerfully how people can live their lives, right? I mean, it really matters.
Right.
Just like race matters, gender and sexual orientation matters, and the sorts of access to wealth, to careers, and those sorts of things that people have. So we do a deep exploration of those things in the major, and then in addition to that, we have safe zone training where we work with people to make them more aware of their own implicit biases, but also to create spaces for students and other people who need a place to talk. Right? Maybe they're not welcomed in their home,
Right.
And don't feel comfortable sharing who they are, but they can have a space. They can come into my office or talk with somebody else. And so we do trainings around that. And then there's student clubs, right, which you attended one of theirs, where they bring in special guests or meet and talk together,
Right.
to explore these issues and their impact. So there's lots of different, I mean, there's more than one organization on campus that works at it. And I've been at a couple different universities, and every university I've been at has had these options for people.
And that's great. And I think that's one reason why younger people are a little bit more, if not accepting, at least tolerant, and are learning that, you know, we need to all get along and not let what somebody looks like decide who we're going to accept. We have a caller. Hi, caller. Come tell.
Thursday, when I was on my campus, I was looking to get my purple ribbon to put on, you know, to show some report, you know, some support.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in nowhere on my campus. I didn't know if, you know, it cost $1 or something like that. Fine, we want to pay the $1. And I ain't gonna call what campus it is. They didn't know nothing about that purple ribbon you wear to show support for people in the GLT community that being bullied. And I'm saying, what's up with that? In some ways, I don't think some things have changed enough.
Oh, thank you for your comment. I agree wholeheartedly. You know, we're asked probably to be content with where we have gotten so far, but does that mean we sit back and not try harder to get a little further, a little faster? Okay, and that's always been one of my pet peeves. You know, if people have a right to do things, then everybody should have the same rights as the next person, and it shouldn't take that long to figure it out, quite frankly.
Yeah, and maybe to add to this too, that the idea of acceptance and tolerance, those are pretty low bars, right?
Right.
So we need more than just tolerance. We need to push back past that so that people can embrace each other, right? So you don't just tolerate somebody else existing, but you celebrate their existence.
Exactly.
And that's a different level of that's where we need to end up, right? We're all richer because of the vast differences that we have with each other, and yet there's, as you mentioned, so much that is common between us, right? So there's more, we're more alike than we're different, and then we celebrate the differences, because that's what makes the world great.
Exactly. And to me it's an equation. One human equals a human. So if we're all human beings, then why isn't that equal sign there? It makes no sense to me. It's kind of You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
we're all the same, then we should be the same. We are unfortunately running out of time, and which I really hate, and I wish we had more time. I want to first of all thank Dr. Merrick for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And I'm going to ask him if he's got any last final thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, let me just say, right, Jackie, that since you and I have had some of these discussions, I think that the way in which, for example, you and I have talked about this, you've put yourself out in particular spaces where one would think that you wouldn't be well accepted. At VFW posts, working with on Memorial Day with other military veterans. You and I are both military veterans. That's how we first met.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we shouldn't just go for the low-hanging fruit of the spaces that seem obvious that we can work in, right? It's good to have safe spaces and to work there, but it's also really important for us to move out into spaces where we wouldn't necessarily think that we would get acceptance or tolerance, let alone be embraced, and to get to know people, right? So I think when gay people began to be more widely accepted, it's because more people knew more gay people and then realized that they were just gay, right? And so the more that we can have real interactions that aren't just one-off interactions where they're repeated multiple times and people get to know each other, that's how we can change it. And so you've clearly done that. You have the show, you've been putting yourself out there, and others, as allies, need to continue to work to do that work.
Exactly. And quickly, that's one thing I would ask of anybody out there. You may not be transgender, L, G, or B, but if you understand what we're saying, please don't be afraid to tell others, that we're no different, and that we want the same abilities. So from me to you and from us to you, until next month, the third Friday of next month, same time, hope you'll join us, and till then, goodbye.